This is Kenichi, a full-time Gooner and a part-time hardcore gamer. By hardcore, I mean this ugly loser spent 3 full years finishing a single game. After finally beating it, he leans back like some gaming legend and starts complaining that the game was boring and disappointing. Bro, if it was that boring, why did you play it for 3 years? Just admit it, you're bad at games and move on. What Kenichi really wants isn't fun, he wants pain. He wants a game so cruel that it would ruin his life for at least 10 years. Something that doesn't care about his feelings or his sleep schedule. So without wasting time, he jumps online and starts hunting for his next victim. He scrolls through titles, ratings, reviews, and recommendations, but everything looks weak. Too easy, too normal. Nothing screams, "This will destroy you." Then suddenly his computer starts acting weird. The screen glitches, flickers, and strange symbols pop up like his PC is possessed. Out of nowhere, a message appears offering him a game that never ends, set in a fantasy world filled with magic. Kenichi's eyes light up like he just found buried treasure. A game that never ends. That alone is enough to make his gamer brain short circuit. Without thinking twice, he clicks it like an idiot clicking accept on a suspicious pop-up. The game asks him to choose a difficulty: easy mode, normal mode, hard mode. Boring, same old trash. But as he scrolls down, he notices something hiding at the bottom, a mode called Hell Mode. This is new, this is spicy, this is exactly the kind of suffering he's been begging for. His excitement goes through the roof. Finally, a game that might actually bully him back. Without even hesitating, he selects Hell Mode. Next, he picks the Summoner class, feeling way too confident for someone who took 3 years to finish 1 game. He clicks Start, and that's when things go very wrong. The screen flashes is blindingly bright, and before he can even scream or unplug the PC, Kenichi gets sucked straight into the monitor like a bug into a vacuum cleaner. The next thing he knows, he's crying his lungs out, not because he lost a game, but because he's been reborn. He opens his eyes and realizes he's now a newborn baby, entering the world in a poor frontier family. A man gently lifts him up and gives him a name. From now on, he is called Alan. Strangely, Alan isn't upset at all. In his past life, he was a 35-year-old broke gamer with a dead-end job and 0 future. Compared to that sad existence, this feels like a massive upgrade. Reincarnation gives him a second chance, and this time, he plans to live properly instead of yelling at a screen. Right now, Alan is only 1 year old, so talking is impossible, but his mind works perfectly fine. He can think clearly, understand conversations around him, and carefully observe everything. He quickly realizes that the people here speak Japanese, which seems to be the common language of this world. Alan's family lives in a frontier village where settlers pay taxes to a ruling lord in exchange for land to farm. The place is so new and undeveloped that it doesn't even have a proper name yet. His father, Rodin, is a hardworking and kind man who does everything he can to provide for the family. Based on his appearance, Alan guesses his father is around 20 years old. His mother, Dija, looks even younger, probably still in her late teens. Watching how close and loving his parents are, Alan figures it's only a matter of time before he ends up with little siblings running around. That night, after being put to bed, Alan lies there quietly, lost in thought. Suddenly, something clicks in his mind. He remembers that in this world, he chose the Summoner class. Curious, he tries to open a status screen like in a normal game, but instead of a clean little window appearing, a giant book suddenly pops into existence and floats right above him. Alan lets out a terrified scream. Yeah, seeing a magical floating book as a baby will do that to you. The noise immediately alerts his parents. Realizing he's about to cause a huge problem, Alan panics and forces the book to disappear before anyone walks in. His parents rush into the room, but when they see nothing unusual, they assume their baby was just making noise in his sleep. Thinking it's nothing serious, they quietly leave, completely unaware that their child just summoned something straight out of a nightmare. As soon as his parents leave, Alan carefully pulls the floating book back out again, like a kid sneaking snacks at midnight. This time, he actually gets a good look at it. Turns out this thing isn't just some creepy magic decoration, it's a grimoire, basically his personal user manual for this new world. Inside are all his stats, skills, and abilities laid out nice and clear. After flipping through it, Alan confirms the obvious. Yep, he really did lock himself into the Summoner class. According to the book, he can call creatures from thin air. Sounds cool, until he reads the fine print. Because he's still a baby, the system has nerfed him hard. For now, he can only summon insects and small animals. Not dragons, not demons, bugs. Still, Alan is thrilled. Hey, everyone has to start somewhere. Too excited to think properly, he immediately tries summoning an insect. Nothing happens. He tries again. Still nothing. Again. Nope. After failing over and over like an idiot, pressing the same button and expecting a different result, Alan finally forces himself to calm down. He goes back to the grimoire and notices another skill he ignored earlier, the create skill. When he activates it, something finally changes. A glowing crafting card for an insect appears in front of him. That's when it clicks. He isn't supposed to summon creatures out of nowhere. He has to create them first, then summon them. Now that he has the card, he prepares to do it properly, but of course, timing hates him. Just as he's about to summon, his mother walks in to check on him. Alan reacts instantly, dropping the act and pretending to sleep like a professional. After she leaves, he realizes his body feels ridiculously heavy. Using skills drains him way more than he expected. His eyelids feel like bricks, and staying awake is clearly not happening. So he gives up, deciding to try again tomorrow, and passes out. The next morning, when no one is paying attention to him, Alan pulls out the grimoire again. This time everything works. The summoning completes, and a giant grasshopper appears out of nowhere and immediately jumps straight onto his face. Alan completely panics for half a second, then remembers he's technically the boss here. He quickly tries giving it commands, telling it to obey him. The grasshopper does not care at all. It ignores him and casually hops away like, yeah, no. Confused and slightly offended, Alan checks the grimoire again. Inside, he finds the grasshopper's stats neatly written down. The book also explains something important. Summoned creatures need to be named before they properly recognize their master. After thinking for a moment, Alan decides to name the grasshopper Dina. It sounds good enough for a bug. When he checks his own stats again, he notices something interesting. Just by summoning Dana, his abilities have actually increased. Before he can enjoy this small victory, disaster strikes. His mother suddenly walks into the room. The moment she sees the grasshopper, she freezes. She is absolutely terrified of insects. Without thinking even for a second, she reacts on pure instinct and crushes Dana instantly. No warning, no mercy. Just like that, Alan's first summon is gone forever. Over the next few days, Alan keeps experimenting with his skills whenever he gets the chance. After a lot of trial and error, he finally manages to summon another creature. This time, it's a small mouse. He names it Mousy because honestly, creativity isn't his strongest stat yet. Sadly, Mousy turns out to be just as dumb as Dina. It barely listens and mostly runs around doing whatever it wants. However, Mousy does have one useful skill called Scurry, which lets it dash around the room at insane speed. While Mousy isn't exactly obedient, it will at least use Scurry whenever Alan tells it to, which is still a small win in his book. Alan spends the rest of the day glued to his grimoire, reading every page again and again. He tries to understand how summoning truly works and what he needs to do to create stronger monsters that will actually follow orders. He thinks about conditions, possible tricks, skill combinations, everything. But no matter how hard he studies, he can't find a clear answer. By the end of it, all he gets is a mild headache and a lot of frustration. Later that afternoon, Alan's father, Rodin, finally comes home. His clothes are stained with blood, making it obvious he just returned from a dangerous hunt. With pride in his voice, Rodin tells Alan that he managed to take down a massive boar. He describes how huge and terrifying it was, clearly enjoying the story, and then asks if Alan wants to go see it. Hearing that, Alan's excitement explodes. This is the first real monster Alan has ever seen in this world, and his excitement shoots through the roof like he just unlocked a rare event. Seeing his son so thrilled, Rodin decides to take him along, since this is also Alan's first proper trip outside the house. After about 10 minutes, they reach the place where the giant boar monster is being cut up. Several villagers are already there, working together like it's a group mission. At first, Alan is amazed as he looks closely at the monster, but the longer he stares, the more his excitement fades. About 10 months later, Alan gets exciting news. He reaches level 2 as a summoner. This allows him to create G-rank creature cards and unlocks a fusion skill that lets him combine his summons. On top of that, his inventory space doubles, meaning more buffs and more potential power. That night, filled with excitement, Alan tries to use his fusion skill, but no matter what he does, it doesn't work. His MP is full, the process is correct, correct, yet nothing happens. He feels frustrated, but realizes he's still too young and not strong enough. By the time Alan turns 3, his growth is obvious. After many failed attempts, he finally succeeds in fusion and creates a bird card. The summoned bird is named Chappie. Chappie has a skill called voice mimicry, allowing it to perfectly copy anything Alan says. Alan immediately sees how useful this could be in battles and traps. Looking at everything he's learned, Alan feels satisfied. This world feels like hardcore gaming at its peak. Later that afternoon, his friend Karina comes over to play. They start sword fighting with wooden sticks, and Alan thinks it'll be easy. But Karina turns out to be much faster, dodging his attacks and hitting back before he can react, leaving him completely caught off guard. Karina doesn't even give him time to breathe. She slips past his attacks like she's dancing, dodges everything he throws, and smacks him back before his brain can even process what's happening. Before he knows it, the fight is over, and he's the loser. By the end of the day, Alan is completely wrecked. Every muscle hurts, his body feels like it got run over, and his pride is in even worse shape. Karina absolutely destroyed him. Still, instead of crying about it, Alan lies there quietly and makes a promise to himself. Next time they fight, he won't lose. No matter what, he'll be stronger by then. That night, the family drops some big news. Deja announces that she's pregnant. The moment Alan hears this, he tells his father that he wants to help with harvesting the potatoes, since his mother won't be able to do as much work anymore. They gently refuse and tell him that a kid his age shouldn't be worrying about work. They say his job is to play, rest, and enjoy being a child. They even encourage him to keep spending time with Karina, since they've noticed how happy he looks whenever the two of them play together at night. On top of that, they mention they're really excited about Alan's upcoming appraisal ceremony. Alan has no idea what that is. A few months pass, and winter arrives. One day, Alan makes a careless mistake and forgets to hide Dana. His mother suddenly spots the insect. When Rodin rushes in, Deja tells him her water has broken. Not long after, Jera and his wife Matilda arrive. By morning, the boys wake up to the sound of a baby crying. They rush over and find that the delivery was successful. Rodin decides to call him Mesh. Deja immediately likes the name, but after a moment, she asks if it came from a monster. Rodin admits that it did. Still, Deja can't deny that it sounds nice. She starts laughing, and soon everyone else joins in. As they laugh together, Alan quietly watches from the side. Alan makes a silent vow. No matter what it takes, he will free his family from the cruel life of being serfs. A few years later, when Alan turns 5, a big question pops into his head. He looks up at his father and asks what this aptitude day is all about. His father smiles and explains it in a simple way. He tells Alan that when every child in the land turns 5, they must go to a special test. But he also warns Alan that many kids will be tested on the same day. Alan tilts his head, not really understanding what competition means. Just then, a familiar voice calls his name. Karina appears behind his father and waves happily. She says they should walk to the test together. Soon, the small group starts heading toward the village. As they move through the streets, Karina stares around in shock. There are houses everywhere, way more than she expected. Alan is busy looking at everything with wide eyes. While walking, Karina suddenly declares that if she gets the chance, she will become a knight and fight with a sword. The building for the test turns out to be a church. When they reach it, Alan notices something that makes him feel small. Many of the other kids are wearing clean, fancy clothes. Some of them even whisper and laugh when they realize he's just a servant's child. Before things can get worse, the church doors open. The priests step forward and speak about Elmia, the god who created the world. They say every child is given a fair start in life. They remind everyone that even great heroes once came from poor families. One was born a simple villager, another used to be a servant. Hearing this, Alan feels a small spark of hope. He remembers from his old life that powerful roles often begin from the lowest places. The children are then called inside. The church is quiet and serious. At the front stands a statue of Elmia watching over the room. The village chief and his son go first. The rules are simple. Each child must place their hand on a glowing crystal ball. Whatever skills and talents they have will appear on a metal board behind the priest. The chief is so nervous, sweat drips down his face. His son touches the crystal. Words appear on the board. The boy is meant to become a traitor. The father almost cries with happiness. Alan secretly checks his own invisible book. Only he can see it. Instead of numbers, his skills are shown as letter ranks. One by one, the children step forward. One boy finds out he has no special talent and runs back to his dad in tears. Another kid slaps himself for courage, then cheers when he learns he has amazing luck and the strength to fight with an axe. Alan is shocked when he sees that this boy even has a top-level rank, something he's never seen before. Soon, only 2 kids are left. Krina doesn't wait. She rushes to the crystal and presses her hand against it. Suddenly, the light explodes across the room, brighter than anyone expected. The metal board reveals her future. She is meant to become a legendary sword master. Everyone gasps. That kind of role is almost unheard of. Krina, however, crosses her arms and complains. She says she just wanted to be a normal sword fighter. Alan finally understands why he could never beat her when they played. Now it's Alan's turn. He walks forward calmly and touches the crystal. A flash bursts out, even stronger than Krina's. The force knocks him back onto the floor. His father runs to the priest, asking what happened, but the answer is strange. The board doesn't show a class or talent. Instead, it's covered in messy symbols and broken letters. Inside his head, Alan starts shouting at the game makers for making such a broken system, but his father gently helps him up and tells him it's time to go home. Later that night, they sit together by the fire. His parents hold him close and tell him something important. Talent or no talent, he is still their precious son. Alan smiles. Their home is small. They don't even have a proper bath. But in that moment, he feels rich in a different way. When he lies down to sleep, he opens his secret book one last time. He checks his stats carefully. Every single one is ranked at the very bottom. That's when it hits him. All the kids were 5 years old. That means they should all be at the very start, just like him. But somehow, Alan realizes he's the only one in this world playing the hardest difficulty. After thinking about his strange status, Alan slowly starts to understand what those letter ranks really mean. It's not saying he is weak, it's saying he grows painfully slow. In this world, when people level up, their strength jumps forward. But for Alan, every step forward feels like crawling. His hell mode makes his progress almost 100 times slower than everyone else's. That's why all his skills show the lowest rank. The numbers aren't broken, his growth is. In his past life, he was a guy who loved easy games. Now fate throws him into a world where he's the only one playing on the hardest setting. Anyone else would lose their mind. Alan just grins. He didn't come here to quit, he came here to beat a challenge that looks impossible. About that strange class name full of messy letters, Alan decides it must be a system error. In his head, he promises to complain until the makers of this world fix it. No broken game escapes a stubborn gamer. The next morning, Alan notices something odd. His father is quiet and stiff, acting like he barely slept. Alan asks his mother what's wrong, but she only smiles and says his father is just thinking too much. That evening, the family heads to Krina's house to celebrate her amazing result. Krina can't stop talking. She proudly explains that a sword lord is even stronger than a normal sword fighter. Alan pretends to act surprised, so she won't know he already figured that out. Matilda mentions that the village leader brought them a bottle of fancy drink as a gift. Roden tries to stay serious, but his eyes shine when he tells everyone to enjoy it. Alan starts wondering if his father feels jealous of Krina's success, but he quickly pushes the thought away. Then Jera tells Roden that guests should take the first sip. Roden says no. Back and forth they go, until the friendly talk turns sharp. Jera suddenly says that Roden wants to stop the two families from seeing each other. That makes the room go silent. Roden sighs and explains himself. He says Krina's talent is so rare that she might one day become a knight, maybe even a noble. People like that shouldn't be tied down by simple servant families. The words hit hard. The two men step closer, voices rising, fists tightening. Alan quickly looks at Krina, hoping she'll stop them, but their wives move faster. Matilda swings first. One clean punch drops her husband to the floor. Alan learns a very important life lesson right there. Never make Matilda angry. Later, he asks her if the two men always fight like this. She laughs and says they used to brawl almost every day when they were younger. Becoming fathers actually made them calmer. Teresa adds that the two families have known each other since they were kids. They even moved together to this land years ago and built their homes side by side. That's why the houses look so similar. The men start arguing again about who worked harder building the homes. But after finally drinking the old bottle they saved since their wedding days, they laugh and make peace. The next morning, trouble arrives. While working, Jera hears that the Night Order is looking for Krina. Worried, he gathers his friends and takes his daughter back to the city where the test happened. The news has already spread. People whisper as they walk by. Everyone knows a powerful sword lord was born among common folk. Suddenly, a boy steps into their path, gripping a heavy club. Alan recognizes him. It's the loud kid from the test, the one with the axe talent. The boy sneers and asks Alan what a no-talent nobody is doing in a place like this. Before Alan can speak, Krina jumps in front of him, ready to fight. Jera quickly grabs her before she actually does. Then the ground starts to shake. Horses arrive. The Night Order rides into the city, shining in armor. At their front stands Captain Xenof, a famous swordmaster. Everyone watches in awe as they dismount. The village chief calls Jera and Krina forward. Krina's eyes sparkle. Just 3 years ago, she was swinging sticks in pretend battles. Now, real knights stand in front of her. Xenof offers Krina a place in the Night Order, but Jera hesitates. He says she's still too young, too small to even hold a real sword. Xenof's face hardens. He says refusing means Jera is lying about his daughter's test. Lying to a noble is a crime that can lead to death. The air turns cold. To prove Krina's talent is real, Xenof demands a test. Jera falls to his knees, begging them to stop. But the captain's words are sharp and final. If Krina does not fight, her and her whole family will be executed. As everyone watches in fear, Krina is the only one who doesn't hesitate. The moment a sword is placed in front of her, she grabs it and runs forward with a bright smile, like this is just another game. The vice captain steps in and introduces himself as LeBron, a lancer. Krina shouts her name and charges. Their weapons clash, and although LeBron blocks her easily, people are shocked by how strong she is for a child. Alan thinks her daily practice must have already pushed her skill far higher than normal. LeBron strikes back, and Krina barely blocks. Jera panics as she tries to attack again, but leaves herself open. A hard kick sends her flying into the wall. Jera and the others try to rush forward, but soldiers stop them. It feels like everything is over. Then Krina stands up, surrounded by a strange light. She moves faster and hits harder than before, forcing LeBron to fight seriously. With one powerful swing, she cuts his weapon in half and nearly strikes his head. Xenof steps in and ends the duel, declaring Krina the winner. The crowd cheers as Xenof congratulates Jera and apologizes for doubting him. Jera only cares about holding his daughter and making sure she is safe. Later, at the village chief's home, Xenof explains that Baron Granbell sent him to confirm the rumor of a sword lord, and after the duel, there is no doubt. He announces that the village will now be called Kina Village in Krina's honor. He also tells an old story about a noble child once mistaken for a sword lord, which is why all special talents must now be tested more than once. Xenof apologizes again and asks Jera to train Krina well, saying she can enter the academy at 12 and one day serve the royal family. Dagora asks if anyone can join the academy, and Xenof says a teacher will come to the village, and those who train hard may earn a chance. Krina says Alan should study too, but Dagora mocks him for being talentless. Krina jumps in to defend her friend, and Alan finds it funny that a little girl is standing up for him. Xenof finally notices Rodin and praises him as a famous boar hunter, explaining that the Baron loves the village's boar meat. Alan feels proud seeing his father respected, even if the noble enjoys the reward. After a long wait, Alan finally gets some good news. His summoning skill levels up at last. He quickly opens his grimoire to check the details and realizes this upgrade is a big deal. He's unlocked an enhance ability that lets him power up his summons directly. On top of that, a new category called blank creatures becomes available. Alan expected this part, but just like before, he'll need to fuse them to create brand new summons, the same way he once made Chappie. He can't help but hope the next fusion gives him something cool, maybe even a scary dragon. There's more good news. His card storage expands from 20 slots to 30, which means he can now stack even more buffs than before. Since it's been 2 full years since his summoning skill last improved, Alan knows he'll need time to properly test everything out later. That evening, Alan volunteers to handle the dishes. On the surface, it's because his mother Teresia is pregnant again and needs rest, but honestly, he just wants to finish his chores fast so he can play around with his upgraded skills. During dinner, his little brother Mash asks if the baby will be another brother. Their father Rodin explains it could be either a boy or a girl. Teresia adds that the baby's movements feel gentle, so she has a feeling it might be a girl. Rodin jokes that he should start thinking of names, but Teresia quickly reminds him that she gets naming rights if it's a daughter. While this is happening, Alan notices something strange. His MP has fully recovered. Curious, he checks his grimoire and sees a message from Elmia, the god of creation. Without thinking, he accidentally reads the name out out loud. That immediately makes things awkward. Rodin scolds him, saying it's wrong to casually say the Lord's name, and Teresia points out that Alan has been acting odd all day. Panicking, Alan pretends nothing's wrong and blames it on bad timing from the developers, then quickly changes the topic by commenting on the scar on his father's arm. Rodin explains that the scar healed because he passed a trial of the gods during that day's boar hunt. Sometimes, while hunting, they feel a sudden rush of power that removes wounds and exhaustion. Alan reacts with fake excitement, but inside, he realizes this is probably how people in this world experience leveling up. Rodin is an experienced hunter who can't see his stats, but Alan guesses his father must be a high level by now. The problem is, Alan himself is still level 1, even though his summoning skill improved. He can't gain experience unless he fights monsters. As a serf, he isn't allowed to leave the village without permission, and hunting is the only exception. He casually mentions wanting to join a hunt, but Rodin immediately shuts the idea down, warning him that hunting is deadly serious and people lose their lives doing it. Alan wisely doesn't argue. Later that night, Alan checks his grimoire again to properly read Elmia's message. He already knows what it's about. He sent plenty of angry complaints earlier. Just as expected, the message explains that the strange broken text from his appraisal ceremony has finally been fixed. It also clarifies that his stats appeared as E rank because Hell Mode slows leveling dramatically. To make up for it, they included his raw stat data as an attachment. When Alan opens it, his mood instantly improves. His MP and intelligence are S rank, which fits perfectly for a summoner. Overall, his stats spread matches what someone like Krina has, so he decides there's no real reason to complain. Feeling satisfied, he jumps straight into testing his new powers. He starts by using Enhance on one of his summons, Donka. The effect is immediate. The creature's own stats rise, just as Alan expected. However, this doesn't increase the buffs Alan receives, so he decides to test it visually. He summons Dina, and even though it isn't any bigger, it clearly feels stronger just by looking at it. That's when Alan realizes summoning isn't just about size or raw intimidation, it's about smart power upgrades. He's thrilled by the discovery, until his mother suddenly walks into the room. The moment Teresia sees Dina, she panics. Before Alan can explain, she stomps it without hesitation, assuming it's nothing more than a giant insect. The next morning, after hours of summoning and dismissing his creatures again and again, Alan figures something important out. Enhancements stay on a card permanently. That means once a summon is enhanced, it stays stronger forever. As long as he has enough MP, the smartest move is to enhance every card he owns. He keeps experimenting with fusion combinations, trying to unlock another new creature type. Most attempts fail, and he realizes there's only one combo he hasn't tested yet, an F-rank insect fused with an F-rank bird. Hoping this is the missing piece, he gives it a try. This time, it works. A brand new type finally appears, but instead of something cool or scary, the result is a grass type F-rank summon. Alan just stares at the card, completely unimpressed. He didn't even know grass counted as a summonable creature. A dragon, a beast, even something creepy would have been fine. But grass? Still, he shrugs and accepts it. What really matters are the buffs. When he checks the details, his mood instantly improves. This summon provides an MP buff, something he's been desperately lacking. With more MP available each day, he can train longer and use more skills. Since Hell Mode leveling is painfully slow, this single buff could save him years of grinding. That alone makes the summon worth it. Curious, Alan summons it for the first time. What appears in front of him is an apple with arms and legs. After a short pause, Alan names it Apleo. Clearly it's not built for combat. Apleo's only skill is called Aroma. When Alan asks it to use the skill, the apple quietly sinks into the ground and vanishes. A moment later, a small plant sprouts from the soil and keeps growing until it's almost as tall as Alan himself. He's confused at first, but then he notices the air around it. It smells pleasant, like a calming herbal oil. Before he can think more about it, Teresia calls him for lunch. Panicking, Alan orders a Pleo to return to its card, but nothing happens. The plant just stays there. When his mother sees it, she simply comments that it smells really nice. Alan nods along, acting casual, while secretly wondering what this strange plant is actually useful for besides buffs. After lunch, Krina comes over to train with swords like usual. As expected, Alan loses almost instantly. He's used to that by now, but after the first match, Krina pauses and says something surprising. He feels a bit tougher than before. That catches Alan completely off guard. He quickly checks his grimoire and discovers that his sword mastery has reached level 3. On top of that, the extra inventory space from his recent upgrade allowed him to stack more endurance and attack buffs. Suddenly, Krina's comment makes sense. Alan also starts wondering if a Playo's Aroma skill has any hidden combat effects, like boosting stats without him noticing. That thought reminds him of Photo, his first summon with an actual attack skill called Chomp. He really wants to test it, but using that on a person is obviously a bad idea, so he holds back for now. Later in the day, Alan goes back to throwing rocks at the tree in the backyard, repeating the same training he's done thousands of times already. At this point, he feels like he's thrown over 20,000 rocks, yet his throwing skill still refuses to level up. Mash tries copying him, but quickly gets bored and doesn't see the point. Alan tells him to wait a bit longer, even though he knows his time would be better spent helping his pregnant mother or focusing on his summoning skill. Honestly, this training feels like a waste. Still, the thought that he might be one throw away from leveling up makes quitting impossible. Just as he's about to throw another rock, Mash asks what all the trees around their house are. Alan pretends not to know, but he can't ignore the truth anymore. The place is starting to look like a small garden, and it's taking up space. Alan confirms through testing that a Playo's Aroma reduces MP recovery from 6 hours to 5. That single hour is a huge advantage in Hell mode, letting him act more each day. Still, he feels like time is always slipping away. That night, Rodin hasn't returned home, which feels strange since he said he'd be hunting nearby. Before they can dwell on it, shouting breaks out in the rain. Villagers rush in carrying Rodin's badly injured body, barely conscious after being gored by a boar. Goethe explains that they saved Rodin using a rare healing herb, Muller's flower, paid for with gold the knight captain had given earlier as an apology. Without it, Rodin would have died. Tensions rise as the other serfs blame the commoner who joined the hunt, but they step outside when Mash starts crying. When Alan asks what really happened, Goethe explains that the chieftain ordered commoners to join the boar hunt. Hunting is dangerous but essential for serfs, who rely on the leftover meat after most of it goes to the baron. Normally, commoners never participate, but after Rodin was praised as a legendary hunter, people believed they'd be safe with him. During the hunt, panic broke out, someone fell, and Rodin was injured while saving them. Though the boar was killed, recovery will take time. That night, Alan stays awake, helping care for his father. Watching his family, he realizes he's been treating this world like a game. Power means nothing without purpose, and he has a little brother to protect with another sibling on the way. When Goethe returns with Rodin's share of meat, Alan promises that from now on he'll protect the family. Over the following days, Alan throws himself into hard labor around the village. He stops pretending to be weak, shocking everyone with his strength. Deciding family comes first, he removes all MP buffs and focuses entirely on physical power. While helping harvest potatoes, he sees how cruel life as a serf really is, especially with the baron claiming most of the crops. Determined to secure food for winter, Alan sets traps and uses Hopper's Provoke to lure birds. At first, nothing happens. Then a shadow dives from the sky, a B-rank Alba Heron. As it devours his summons, Alan notices his enhanced skill has leveled up, doubling its effect. Every summon he owns is already enhanced, and winning would mean survival for his family. Choosing not to run, Alan attacks. The monster overwhelms him, destroying his summons one by one. With each defeat, his buffs vanish, draining his strength. Barely able to stand, Alan finally understands the fatal weakness of being a summoner. This fight might truly be the end. Alan gives a quiet order to Chus, and the small creatures jump onto the monster's neck. They start draining its energy little by little. As the beast grows weak, Alan finally pulls himself free. He feels tired because he used many buffs, but he still calls out to Potts and gets ready to fight. With one strong hit to the head, the monster crashes to the ground. Suddenly, the grimoire floats in front of him. It announces that an Albon has been defeated and rewards him with 100 experience points. The book even sounds happy, saying the victory felt better than expected. Alan drags the Albon back to his family. To sound brave, he tells them he caught it in the sky. Everyone stares in shock. Little Mash starts crying, and Alan's father quickly asks if he is hurt. Alan smiles and says he's fine. Goethe looks amazed that Alan used only a wooden sword and stones, but then he notices bite marks and asks if the Albon bit him. Alan says he didn't notice because he was too focused. Goethe nods and believes him. Goethe tells Rodin that he will take care of cutting and cleaning the monster. While working, he explains that the Albon weighs about 60 kilos, but after draining the blood, only around 20 kilos remain, and only half of that can be eaten. The wings, however, are very valuable. He also explains the village rule. Most of the monster belongs to the boss, especially rare beasts like rank D Albons and horned rabbits. The magic stone inside the monster always goes to the boss because villagers can't use it. Then Goethe has a thought. A child caught a beast while Rodin is still injured. Maybe this could be used to make a deal with the village chief. Alan likes the idea, so they carry the Albon to the chief's house and tell their story. The chief is impressed, but says they can't keep the meat because the land's lord keeps demanding more food. Goethe offers the wings and the magic stone instead, but the chief hesitates. Alan joins the act with Goethe and nearly faints. Seeing this, the chief finally agrees. He lets them keep the meat as long as they hand over the wings and the stone. With that settled, Alan goes back to the fields to hunt more Albons. He uses plants as bait. When the monster comes close, he orders Chus to drain its energy. Then he throws a stone to stun it, tells Potts to bite, and finishes it with his wooden sword. He explains that he hunts once every 3 days, and this time he didn't lose a single summon. The grimoire appears again. It tells him his experience has reached 1,000 points, and he has finally reached level 2. His stats go up even if his skills stay the same. Alan feels proud. After 6 long years, he finally leveled up. He runs home and shows his family what he caught. Rodin looks shocked but also proud. He notices something about Alan, but chooses not to say it. Suddenly, bells ring in the distance. That means it's time to train with belief. While dodging and blocking attacks, Alan thinks about the winter. He plans to dry the meat and trade it in the village later. He also makes a new goal in his head. If Albons keep showing up, he wants to defeat 20 more and reach level 3. Alan knows reaching his big goal before the year ends will be hard. Still, during training, he spots a small opening. He steps in, lands a clean hit, and wins the match. The girl smiles, waves goodbye, and promises they will meet again. That night, Alan sits with his parents by the fire. He decides it's time to stop hiding the truth. He tells them that when he was just 1 year old, a divine oracle spoke to him. His parents freeze in shock, just like he thought they would. His father asks if it was truly a god. Alan nods and repeats the words he was given. The voice said it would give him wisdom and strength, but his path would be harder than 100 others. His mother, Teresia, doesn't fully understand, so Alan explains it simply. He says it means he learns faster than most kids and is a little stronger too, but his life will be full of tough trials. Hearing this, his parents grow emotional and quietly pray to Rodin. Then his father looks closely at Alan's face. He notices the old scar is gone. He says this must mean Alan passed the first trial. Alan is surprised his father even saw it. His father smiles and says Alan has already gone beyond what he himself ever achieved. His mother then asks about the ritual. Alan tells them that 2 months ago he received another message. It said his growth was marked as weak because he grows slowly. He also explains that he didn't receive a normal gift because his power is something new and unknown. His father wants to hear more, but Alan stops himself. He admits he can't explain everything yet. He says he's sorry for hiding things, but if people saw him summon creatures, they might think he's dangerous. His mother walks over and hugs him tightly. She says she never knew how hard he worked to face the trials given by the gods. His father then asks what Alan plans to do next. Alan answers without thinking. He says he will keep moving forward. Rodin nods, as if he expected that answer. He tells Alan to ask for help anytime he needs it, but he also warns him not to tell others about the oracle. People might call it an insult to the gods. Alan agrees. Months pass. One day, Alan is cutting Albon meat with Goethe. Goethe says he always felt Alan was special, but never thought a god would choose him. Later, they walk through the town carrying a heavy bag of meat. Goethe asks if this is Alan's first time shopping. Alan says yes. They talk about how things improved after common villagers stopped joining the hunts. Alan gets curious and asks what makes commoners different. Goethe explains it's about status and taxes. Normal villagers don't pay a meat tax. Instead, every adult must pay 3 gold coins a year, and every child must pay 1. Alan quickly starts counting in his head. Then he asks if someone can become a commoner. Goethe says yes. It costs 10 gold coins, or the land's lord can grant it as a reward. Alan does the math. For his whole family, he would need 50 gold coins. They reach a shop and trade the meat for salt. At another stall, they buy fruit. By the time they head home, Alan is thinking deeply about prices. Over the next few days, he writes everything he learns inside his grimoire. He finds out that 1 gold coin equals 100 silver coins, 1 silver coin equals 1,000 copper coins, 10,000 iron coins equals 1 gold coin. Looking at his notes, Alan realizes something crazy. If he hunts about 500 albans, he could earn the 50 gold coins his family needs. He then visits another shop and asks if there's a potion to restore mana. The seller says none exist. Alan asks about medicine for wounds instead. The seller points to a few healing plants. Alan carefully draws their shapes into his grimoire, making sure he won't forget them. Alan also asks the shopkeeper about Muri flowers. The man shakes his head and says he doesn't have any. He explains that he once found one by pure luck, but sold it last month. He smiles sadly and says he sold it to Gerda. He even lowered the price from 5 gold coins to 3 just to help a friend. Later, when he learned the flower was used to save Rodin's life, he realized he would have gladly given it away for free. Alan feels his chest tighten. He thanks the man and hands him some Alban meat. He says his father is alive because of him, and promises to bring more meat another day. As Alan leaves the shop, something shiny catches his eye. A simple weapon sits on display, priced at 50 silver coins. Before he can step closer, 2 boys walk up. One is the blacksmith's son, and the other is the chief's son. The blacksmith's son shoves Alan and tells him to become his servant. Alan feels anger rise, but he doesn't want a pointless fight. Still, he pulls out his wooden sword just to scare him. He tells the boy to draw his weapon if he really wants a duel. The blacksmith's son laughs and tells the chief's son to watch. He runs off and quickly comes back, holding a shovel instead of a real weapon. They clash. The boy swings wildly and fights with confidence, but he doesn't have the skill of belief. Alan moves smoothly, knocks the shovel away, and steps back without landing another hit. He tells the boy he'll return someday to buy something from the shop, then walks off, leaving the 2 boys furious behind him. That afternoon, Alan watches his father, Rodin, remove his bandages. Rodin proudly says he feels completely fine again. Teresia scolds him gently, telling him not to get hurt so easily. Alan smiles, enjoying the warmth of his family's voices filling the room. The next day, Alan goes to Karina's house to train with Dora. Karina practices with her younger brother nearby. Alan notices something right away. Karina is holding back when she fights him. Dora suddenly tries to attack Alan from behind. Alan reacts fast and dodges. Dora stumbles and crashes into the dirt, ending the training in a pile of dust and laughter. That night, everyone heads home. Later, Alan and his mother take care of the younger kids when Rodin and Goethe return. Their faces look tense and worried. They explain what happened. The Lord of the Land has given a new order. The hunting quota has been raised to 15 bow. That means even the common villagers must now join the hunts. Rodin says there's no arguing. These are direct orders. Goethe adds something even worse. If the village fails to meet the number, the Lord will send in new servants. That would mean less land for every family. Some people could even lose their homes. And next year, the quota will rise again to 20 bow. Teresia says it's crazy and far too dangerous. Rodin agrees, but says the Lord doesn't care what they think. Even if they succeed, the quota can always be raised again. Goethe mutters that the common villagers are useless in a hunt. Alan speaks up. He says they don't have to be useless. He says the God of creation gave him wisdom for a reason, and he believes he can find a way to help everyone. He asks them to trust him and let him try. A few days later, Alan stands outside with the common villagers and the other servants. They are ready to move. Rodin decides to give Alan a chance to prove his idea, so before the next hunt, he tells all the serfs and commoners that they will follow Alan's hunting plan, but Alan will only watch from the side. Alan hoped he could finally join the fight, but his father is too stubborn and refuses to change his mind, so Alan accepts it because what matters most is training the new members properly so no one gets injured like his father did in the past. The commoner who caused the accident last year comes to Rodin and apologizes again, asking him not to protect him if something goes wrong this time. But Rodin says he holds no grudge and tells him to just focus on his role. Soon the group leaves the village, and for the first time in 7 years of living as a serf, Alan steps outside the village with them. In the distance, he sees the White Dragon Mountains, where every autumn the boars come down looking for food, and people say a white dragon lives near the top. After staring at the mountains for a moment, Alan catches up and explains the plan plan again. Roden reminds everyone to stick to what they practiced and orders them to take their positions. As promised, Alan hides in a safe spot, and when a giant boar charges toward them, he understands how terrifying it truly is. Just like before, the front line digs their heels into the ground and stops the boar with their spears, while Roden and the others attack from the sides to weaken it by draining blood and striking its vital points. Alan watches carefully, seeing how the bait team draws the monster in, the tank team holds it in place, and the strike team deals the real damage. This method has kept them alive for over 10 years, even without any special talents. When the boar is almost finished, Alan signals the commoners to get ready because it is finally their turn. He never intended for the weaker members to tank the monster, so his plan is for them to land the final blow and gain experience. Once Roden gives the order, the commoners stab the weakened boar together and bring it down. As it collapses, they feel power flowing through their bodies, proof that they have passed a trial of the gods and leveled up. Since boars are C-rank monsters, the experience they gained is large, making it easier for them to grow stronger. Alan quickly checks his grimoire, but to his frustration, he gains nothing because he did not actively fight. The commoners thank him, saying his strategy helped them win, yet Alan feels bitter because he stood by and earned no progress. A few days later, while carrying water in the village, neighbors ask if he will join the hunt again, and he says he will only observe as usual, though he wishes his father would let him hold a spear. The villagers laugh and say Roden would beat them if they suggested such a thing. One neighbor says he envies the hunters and wants to join, but another reminds him to put down his butcher knife first. The man explains he cannot risk it because his wife is pregnant, so he must stay safe, though he is always happy to cut up monster meat. Hearing this, Alan asks him for help and shows him the many albans he has collected that need butchering. The butcher is shocked by the amount, and Alan offers him 2 packs of meat for each one he processes. The offer is too good to refuse. These albans are not for his family's food supply, so Alan plans to sell the meat to earn 50 gold coins and free his family from serfdom. Paying a town butcher would cost more, so it is smarter to handle it this way and save time. On the next hunt, even more commoners join the team, and by slowly adding new members under his strategy, Alan believes they will soon have enough people to split into 2 groups and double the number of boars they can hunt. Alan often wonders why the Baron is so obsessed with increasing the number of boars, because the land does not seem to be lacking food at all. During another hunt, the bait team draws in a fresh boar, the tank team braces their spears and stops its charge, and the strike team attacks from the sides to weaken it. When the monster is nearly finished, Goethe signals the new members to step forward, and together they stab the boar until it collapses, feeling the familiar surge of power that means they have passed another trial of the gods. Alan quickly checks his grimoire and confirms his idea worked, as his stats rise and he even levels up. Just before the boar reached the tank line, he secretly summoned Dina directly into its path. He can place his summoned creatures anywhere he can see within 50 meters, so when the boar stepped on Dana, it counted as attacking his summon. That single action was enough for the battle to recognize him as a participant. 3 months later, Alan explains that this world also celebrates the new year, and for the first time, he is invited to the chieftain's house. He returns home with Karena, who is excited about the sweets and small gifts they received. Back home, Roden and Goethe are waiting to share dinner together. Alan says they had a good time and that his parents should have joined them, but Goethe replies that sitting through formal ceremonies is a dull way to begin the year. Even so, the family enjoys the feast. Goethe asks if the chieftain mentioned anything about them, and Alan says he was grateful for their hard work. Roden adds that if things continue like this, reaching 20 boars this year should not be difficult, all thanks to Alan's plan of training the newcomers. Goethe then notices a special bottle behind Alan, and he explains that it is liquor given to him as a gift. Roden and Goethe immediately show interest, and Alan smoothly changes the topic by asking Mash if he wants more spear training. Mash eagerly agrees, and Karena says she wants to train too, but Alan tells her she is already strong and that they should focus on Mash's talent with the spear. Even while he talks, his parents cannot stop thinking about the liquor. Goethe reminds him he is too young to drink, so Alan makes his move and says they can have it if they defeat him in a contest. Goethe confidently accepts, while Roden hesitates. Alan then says that if he wins, they must allow him to use a spear in every boar hunt this year. Realizing they fell into his trap, Roden still agrees, saying the winner will claim the reward. When asked about the challenge, Alan chooses arm wrestling. This makes them relax, believing they cannot lose. Goethe goes first and declares he will not hold hold back, but Alan is ready. He filled his inventory with Heita cards to boost his attack, and now at level 6 he feels confident. With the buffs active, he defeats Gerda, estimating that Gerda's attack stat is somewhere between 150 and 200. However, when Rodin takes his turn, Alan cannot overcome his father's strength and loses. He accepts it calmly, guessing Rodin's attack must exceed 300. As they drink the liquor, Alan compares their power levels in his mind. If Goethe's strength is around D rank, then Rodin's is closer to C rank, giving him a clear idea of how strong people in normal mode can become. Rodin tells him he is not weak, but he will not be allowed to hunt boars until he grows strong enough to defeat him. Alan decides to push himself because if he can reach summon level 4 before fall, he has a good chance of achieving his goal. By June, his summon level finally increases, and the grimoire reveals a lot of new information. Checking his stats, he discovers he can now summon E-rank creatures, including a completely new type that he will need to fuse to identify. This time he has plenty of MP, so he can experiment freely. His card inventory also grew by 10 slots, and since summon buffs scale with level, filling it with 40 E-rank cards would give him a huge boost, enough to beat his father in arm wrestling and finally join the hunts. While exploring the grimoire, Alan notices a new skill called storage. At first, he doesn't understand it until he sees a hollow space in one page. Testing it with a stick, he realizes it's extremely deep, and he can mentally call up anything stored inside. He experiments and throws in several items, discovering that anything that fits can be stored, and there's no limit. It feels strange because games usually restrict how much a player can carry, and God tier storage seems unnecessary at this point. He assumes there must be a reason for it. Turning back to E-rank summons, Alan tries creating a rank E insect, but nothing happens. The grimoire informs him he lacks E-rank magic stones, something he hadn't known was required. Sneaking into his room without waking Mash, he retrieves his bag of earnings, using some magic stones he saved from horned rabbits. He tries again, placing the stones in storage, and finally succeeds in summoning a rank E insect, a butterfly. When he calls it, it's larger than expected, and Teresia shows up, forcing him to quickly hide it behind his back and make an excuse. After she leaves, he continues experimenting and summons a rank E beast, a saber-toothed tiger. Bigger and tougher than his dog summon, it boosts his stats by 10, double what F rank summons provide. He names it Tama and sends it back to the grimoire. Alone, he experiments with fusions and manages to create a rank E bird, realizing he will need many magic stones from now on. That night, his father warns that horned rabbits shouldn't appear near the village anymore because they dug ditches around it years ago, making even small monsters dangerous for children. Alan now faces a problem: how to get more magic stones without rabbits. One day, while Krina plays knights with Dagora, Alan talks to Palomas, hoping to learn about magic stones. Palomas explains that they are small gems found near the hearts of monsters and mostly used to power magic tools, which are items that activate with the stones. While high-rank stones are valuable in the capital, E-rank stones are basically trash and often lie on the ground. To prove it, Palomas picks up an E-rank stone from the path. Alan thanks him and decides to scavenge the village for stones. With help from some villagers, he gathers enough to create all the available E-rank summons. Now it's time to test their abilities and see what they can do. Before he can test the new E-rank summons, one of them, Hawkins, suddenly swoops toward him, urgently warning that danger is coming. Alan barely has time to react before a boar leaps over him, knocking him down and injuring him. Another summon, Beansy, rushes over and uses its ability to heal his wounds. The boar charges again, but the butterfly summon, Papon, stuns it long enough for Alan to order Tama, the saber-toothed tiger, to strike. Tama lands a powerful attack that quickly defeats the boar. There's no time to celebrate because another enraged boar appears out of nowhere and charges straight at him. This time the rock summon, Wall-E, positions itself perfectly as a shield. The boar smashes into the solid stone and collapses instantly. Alan breathes a sigh of relief, but when he blinks, everything around him vanishes, making him wonder if it was all a hallucination. He pushes the thought aside, remembering that for the past 7 years he's been planning exactly how a summoner should operate. Unlike in a normal game where he could read FAQs or guides, here he has to figure everything out on his own. Alan realizes that each summon type has a clear role in battle. Insects apply debuffs, beasts focus on offense, birds scout and relay information, grass types heal, and stone types defend. With this, he can cover every role of a typical party by himself, and that's what makes a summoner truly powerful. It also explains why he received the storage skill now. Carrying hundreds of magic stones physically would have been impossible. Finally, Alan fully understands the developer's intent. Ultimate power, making a summoner stronger than even a demon lord. A few days later, the village chief calls Goethe and Rodin and informs them that next month Baron Granville will personally visit to watch the boar hunt, which immediately upsets Goethe because the village keeps receiving more and more demands, first higher hunting numbers, and now they must also entertain a noble. While Rodin calmly asks why Alan was specially requested, the chief explains that the Baron will need a smart and well-mannered guide during his stay and believes Alan is the most suitable. But Goethe protests and questions why the chief's own son, Palomas, cannot take that role, and the chief honestly admits Palomas is not capable of such responsibility, adding that Alan should welcome the Baron starting with dinner the night before the hunt, clearly meaning he must help impress him, even offering Momo fruit as encouragement. Yet Alan does not agree right away. The chief mentions that Alan's clever ideas made last year's hunt successful, which is why he trusts him, and when asked for his answer, Alan hesitates because he does not care about pleasing a Baron, but he knows that as a serf, it could take 10 long years of hunting boars and albans to earn commoner status, and when Rodin gently tells him he may refuse, Alan suddenly remembers that a Baron has the power to grant commoner rank as a reward, so he accepts the position of guide. 1 month later, Baron Granville arrives at the village with his daughter Cecile, and the nervous chief welcomes them before escorting them to his house for dinner, where the Baron praises the village's growth since the land reclamation order 15 years ago and apologizes for increasing the boar meat quota, explaining the pressure came from above, shocking the chief when he reveals that Viscount Carnell spoke about the hunts before the king, causing stricter attention. And although Granville grows angry while mentioning it, his butler Zainoff calmly reminds him to relax. Once settled, the Baron tastes the meal and is surprised by how delicious it is, with Cecile agreeing, and when he asks what meat it is, the chief hesitates, but Alan respectfully explains that it is fresh Alban meat hunted the day before, prepared from breast, thigh, and liver with herbs, impressing the Baron, who assumes Alan is the chief's son, only to learn he is Rodin's child, which reminds Granville of the skilled hunter from years ago, and makes him notice Alan's similar black hair and eyes. Alan bows politely and introduces himself as tomorrow's guide, earning praise for his manners. But when asked if his father once served as a knight, the chief quickly clarifies that Alan comes from a family of serfs, causing Cecile to react with surprise and question why a serf is inside the guest hall, leading Granville to sharply correct her and remind her that serfs are still people of his land, not animals, and although she apologizes, she continues to look at Alan with clear dislike. Zainoff then says he expects a full explanation of the hunt and points out that catching 20 boars in a year is ambitious, warning that if they fail, the Baron's knights will take over, which makes Alan feel they are being looked down on, while Cecile excitedly supports the idea of watching knights hunt a great boar up close, and the Baron agrees that after Alan explains the plan, the knights can step in if needed, but Alan calmly refuses and states that 20 boars is now a small number for them and tomorrow will prove it, silencing everyone with his confidence. The next morning they head to the hunting grounds. Granville orders Zainoff to guard Cecile closely, and upon arrival, Alan leads them to a watchtower built for observing safely, explaining that from there they will be able to see the entire hunt clearly. After they reach the top of the tower, Alan points toward the forest and explains that the great boars live deep inside that area, and before long, the hunters gather below wearing proper armor, which catches Zainoff's attention. So Alan explains that the hides, bones, and even fangs from last year's boars were turned into strong armor and equipment, and he also passes along Rodin's thanks to Baron Granville for allowing them to use those materials. Soon the hunt begins as the bait team runs into the forest, and Alan says their job is to draw a boar out into the open, which is why they wear light gear to stay fast, while Granville and Cecile grow restless waiting, but Alan calmly explains that even if many boars live inside, bringing one out safely takes patience. During the wait, Zainoff asks about Karina, known as the Sword Saint, and Alan confidently says she is training well, which pleases him. Then Zainoff mentions that a tutor will arrive in the spring after next to prepare her for the academy exam, and Alan agrees to inform her, secretly amused at the thought of Karina studying seriously. Soon, the bait team bursts out of the forest with a great boar chasing them, and Alan explains the plan as it unfolds. First, the shield team blocks and traps the beast using massive shields made from hardened boar hide. Then the main attackers move in, and finally, the long spear team, made up of the newest members, strikes from behind, which makes Zainoff realize the front line carries the greatest danger, while Alan adds that their armor also protects them if a spear misses. As the long spears pierce the boar, Cecile turns pale, and Alan calmly notes that the neck is the quickest weak point, and in the next moment, Rodin lands the finishing blow, dropping the beast as the hunters cheer, but Cecile faints, and Sabas quickly moves to help her, while Zainoff quietly admits to Granville that these men may not be knights, but they fight like true warriors, and the Baron agrees, impressed, saying the yearly quota seems achievable. However, the situation suddenly changes when the bait team runs out again with two great boars chasing them, causing Zainoff to tense and order the knight labor to prepare. But Alan quickly asks him to wait, explaining the hunters trained for this, and Rodin immediately commands the men to split into two groups and follow their practice formation, because once prey is drawn out, it must be defeated or it will become a future threat. For 10 years, the serfs struggled to do this due to poor gear, since 60% of their meat is taken as tax and the rest traded for daily needs, leaving little for upgrades, so they improved slowly, first investing in better spears and then building a precise hunting system that increased their success little by little. Cecile briefly wakes but faints again when she sees another boar fall to Rodin's strike, and despite the danger, all three boars are defeated quickly, though Alan hides his own worry because facing two at once was risky. Granville remarks that 17 more are needed, but Alan respectfully corrects him, saying 7 were already hunted earlier, leaving only 10, and at this pace the quota will be finished by next month, which clearly impresses the Baron and even makes Zenov admit the knights will not be needed. Alan then politely presents 2 requests, first asking permission to build 2 more shield walls to make future hunts safer and more efficient, which Granville quickly approves, assuming it will raise productivity, and second requesting approval to trade surplus meat for goods unavailable in the village, especially liquor, and to allow limited distribution among the serfs, explaining that too much meat in the local market would lower its value, so exchanging it for imported liquor would keep balance. And when the Baron asks why liquor, Alan carefully hints that Zenov would understand, since hunters who risk their lives need strong morale as much as weapons, which Zenov immediately agrees with, saying a small amount would lift spirits, and Alan adds that this idea came from his father. Granville responds favorably and praises Alan for guiding them well today, but as they prepare to leave, Cecile finally regains consciousness and coldly tells Alan that receiving even a little praise from her father is already more than he deserves, and warns him not to become arrogant. While complaining, Cecile almost falls from her horse, but Sabas quickly catches her, and Alan thinks he will probably never see her again. However, sometime later, he travels with Rodin and Gerda to Baron Granville's estate, where the Baron announces that their hunting results have exceeded expectations, and such achievement deserves a proper reward, leaving Rodin and Gerda stunned, while Alan silently prays the reward will not be money, but status. And just as he hopes, Granville declares that Rodin, Gerda, Alan, and their families are promoted from serfs to commoners, causing them to freeze in shock before bowing deeply in gratitude. And Alan feels overwhelming joy because as a commoner, he can finally leave the village freely, something he has dreamed of for 8 years, especially with the goal of one day traveling to the White Dragon Mountains to hunt dragons. Granville further states that any serf who has hunted boars for over 10 years will also be reviewed for promotion, and since the quota will be fulfilled, he can safely return to the capital, but Sabas reminds him of the king's remaining question, so the Baron explains that the king wants to present Karina village as a model settlement, and asked how the boar hunts first began, something even Alan never fully knew, so Gerda speaks in Rodin's place, explaining that 13 years ago, around 100 serfs settled this land under the reclamation order, and after months of hard work clearing forest and planting crops, A great boar appeared in autumn and destroyed most of their winter food, leaving them desperate since they could not return to the starving villages they came from. And at that time, Roden proposed hunting the boars for survival, even though they had no armor or real weapons, only farm tools like hoes and pickaxes. Yet together they managed to kill one boar, though they lost a companion in that first battle, which is why Roden has carried guilt ever since. Hearing this, Alan finally understands why his father once risked his life to shield another hunter, and Granville apologizes for bringing back painful memories but praises Roden's courage, offering him one more reward and telling him to request anything, making Alan secretly hope for something practical like trade rights. Yet Roden shocks everyone by asking instead for Alan to be allowed to work at the Baron's estate, saying his son is more capable than himself and will accept any position, even hallboy, leaving Alan speechless because this was never his plan and could ruin his dream of hunting dragons. But after a brief discussion and Sabas noting Alan's intelligence, Granville names Alan a manservant. Cecile objects, but Sabas reminds her he's now a commoner, and seeing Roden's pride, Alan accepts. He packs with Teresia's help, duels Karena one last time ending in a draw, bids farewell to the villagers, and leaves with Baron Granville to begin a new life.